San Francisco, and good afternoon on the West Coast, and good evening wherever else you may be. I'm Glenn Schloss with Huawei, based in New York. I've been with the company since 2015. I'm involved in corporate communications primarily, and have been with the company with the crises that we've suffered from since about 2018, when the Trump administration decided to attack the company. The topic that we want to focus on today is really the role of innovation for companies to navigate very challenging times. And this has been very much at the heart of the strategy Huawei has been deploying over the last 3 or 4 years during a period of very intense uncertainty in US-China relations affecting the company, but also even more broadly, now we are seeing even greater geopolitical problems arising with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So regardless of this, the company continues to invest in innovation, and really as a way, it's an investment in innovation to survive, really, and to harness the technological opportunities that exist, but also to refocus the company and move to transition it to a post-sanctions era. So just some background on Huawei, if I may. It's a company of about 200,000 employees, and the revenue is last year in 2021, it was just a shade under $100 billion. It's grown over the past 35 years or so, when it was founded in 1987, to be the leader in networks for broadband and also mobile telephones. So, and then also diversification into smartphones in recent years, and then increasingly a focus on enterprise solutions for companies and technology as well. We're global in 170 countries. And just looking at that innovation perspective again, 50% of our employees are in R&D. One measurement of R&D investment from the EU suggests that we are number 3 globally. The way to measure R&D does vary, but certainly we are up there with Google, Apple, and the major Western tech brands. Certainly investing far more than our network competitors, and but we don't invest as much in dollars as Amazon, which is regarded as spending the most. This is essentially our business strategy. The focus of the company when it was founded back in the mid-80s was on carriers, the telecom operators, and then expanded over the past 10 years or so into smartphones and devices for consumers. And as I mentioned, more recently, greater focus on enterprise for private sector as well as governments. Cloud is an area that we are growing and performing better in recent years, and really at the heart of our tech strategy and the business strategies, connectivity and computing. Here's an overview of the company's financial performance. It was growing very steadily until about 2019, when the Trump administration imposed sanctions, and they really hit the company primarily in the form of a ban on semiconductors, the very advanced small 5 and 7 nanometer semiconductors that were going into our flagship smartphones. These are known as the P series or the Mate series, and those smartphones we can't manufacture. any longer. We do a dwindling supply of semiconductors for those. So that's been a major impact on revenue. So we saw a loss of about $30 billion in revenue in 2021. And you can see it's now back to about 100 billion last year. In terms of the key drivers for the growth that the company has been enjoying and will rely on, investment in R&D is a key, and then the value creation that we provide arising from that, but also from very strong customer service and customer focus. And then there's a strategic focus on the way in which data is moved around the world, from the pipes, which is the networks and the broadband and the mobile operators, through to the data storage, and then the display of data as well on handsets or in devices and smartphones and so on. So the core values really a dedication and customer centricity. And then when it comes to innovation or R&D, it's a perseverance in which the R&D engineers and the scientists that the company employs focus continuously on problems and challenges and hurdles until they achieve some sort of breakthrough. And just take a moment to explain Huawei's journey since 1987. In terms of this chart here, green shows the company's revenue, and it was really around 2000 that, in the beginning, the company was founded by Ren Zhengfei. Mr. Ren is a former officer in the Chinese military, the PLA. And during a very significant demobilization of personnel from the armed forces, he found himself out of work, and after trying one job with a state-owned enterprise, which didn't work out, he got together with a group of people with capital of about $3,000 to form Huawei. They focused on importing PABX equipment. PABX being the old telephone switches that were used in offices and hotels, and they imported the first gear from Hong Kong, and were then distributing it in the Chinese rural areas. And that was really the company's focus for a few years, until there's a need for a new switch. And then this is where innovation, the innovation spirit entered the company. And Guo Ping, who's now one of the most senior executives, he developed a new switch, which was unavailable in the Chinese market. And from there, Huawei began to expand in the Chinese hinterland. And then around 2000, the competition from foreign operators was so strong in China that the company expanded internationally. And then it was around that time as well, of course, there was a big bust in the tech sector. And the company continued to invest despite the external economic environment and the tech sector suffering. And that coincided with a massive expansion in mobile telephone usage globally and also in China. And at the same time as well, more Chinese people from the rural hinterland were moving into cities. And that's when Huawei then started moving into the big Chinese cities of Beijing and Shanghai and so on to expand in terms of network operations. And then you can see the smartphone growth there in the red kick in from about 2016 and 17, when there was a greater focus on innovation in smartphones by Huawei. And a lot of that innovation came from the use of AI and algorithms, and also the cameras that were in our smartphones. We had a partnership with Leica the German photography manufacturer. The quality of the cameras was really quite amazing. And the photography was so strong, not really as a result of the lenses, but because of the algorithms and the AI that was built into the smartphones by the Huawei engineers. Just to explain here that Huawei is a company owned by its employees. It's not owned by the Chinese government. It's not owned by the Communist Party nor the Chinese military. It really is owned by about 100,000 employees, about half the workforce, or 120,000. And Mr. Ren holds just under 1%. And I think this is a very strong safeguard for the company to remain on the straight and narrow, so to speak. There's a lot of allegations in the US from the right, from the conservative elements of government, and also in politics, that the company may be forced by the Chinese government to build backdoors into networks or compromise data privacy on behalf of the Chinese government. But when you have 120,000 people who are receiving significant salaries and also significant bonuses and payouts from their shares, that's a very strong incentive for them to remain operating in a proper, ethical manner with integrity as well. Here's really the innovation role here in terms of the whole operation of the company. We've opened innovation. So prior to, say, 5 years ago, the company was very much focused on working internally, and it's now open to a very large ecosystem of partners to bring and create more innovation. Our founder, Mr. Ren, was very concerned if the company remained closed, it would stagnate. And so there's a very open innovation model now. And it's a much more inclusive company with, as I mentioned earlier, a very strong strategic focus. Here is the heart of it all, the connectivity, which extends across networks and into IoT as well. And then the computing is really very much focused on Huawei Cloud, some very high performance computing being developed as well. And then data storage is an area with cloud that the company wants to build on. And there are a lot of good prospects for us in Latin America, in EMEA, and the Middle East, Europe, and Africa. And unfortunately, though, the sensitivities and problems that we have with the US government. This slide that you can see, I hope you can see, is about the role of innovation. Basically, the company has a commitment to spend 10% of its R&D, 10% of its revenue on R&D every year. And it has been around 15% over the past decade, getting down to 13%. So in 2021, we did spend $20 billion US dollars on R&D, and that has been increased because of the need to develop replacement technologies. Replacement in two senses. One is that there are semiconductors, for example, that we cannot obtain from the US, and we also at the same time need to work on going beyond Moore's law, the limitations that exist in the size of semiconductors. So we have teams that are looking at the future of semiconductors, but then at the same time also computing as well, and getting even into fundamental or basic research. The D in R&D is focused on bringing products or innovations to market, whereas the research for Huawei is very much focused on basic science. and have been considered a leader in 5G, and we were able to get that purely because of this focus on basic research. One of our lead scientists in the wireless R&D area, Dr. Chong Wen, was thinking about 5G and more than a decade ago, and he came across an article in a maths journal, and he realized it provided the foundation for a breakthrough that was needed in terms of 5G wireless communications. And he worked with that professor, and the company worked with that professor, who was from Turkey, to develop the thesis that he had related to algorithms. So that's the type of basic research that occurs, and the expansion that it then goes through. And also, we do need to replace some of the technology that we can't access as well. There are teams at Huawei who are looking ahead to technology over the next 10 years through to 2030. And they believe that in terms of innovation, that there's going to be a lot of progress in terms of the health and wellness area, in which sensors and devices will be increasingly moving into and monitoring the 8 systems that we have in our bodies. Then with robots, greater efficiency for industry and hopefully better lives. There is a lot of implication from innovation for climate change technology, and that's a new area of focus that the company has switched into as a result of the sanctions on the company. And then we see the digital world becoming more enmeshed in terms of VR and AR. Here's an example. The scientists predict that there'll be a massive expansion, 100 times expansion in terms of data growth. And back in 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there was 2.4 exabytes of data being transmitted across mobile broadbands globally. Mobile broadband globally, that's your 4G and your 5G. Well, back then it would have been 4G would have been in place, and then all emerging. And then by 2020, it had grown to 60. So there's 100 times growth there. And these are the various, on the right-hand side, the various theories and laws that are in place around some of the key technology that need further examination, and our scientists and engineers will be looking to push or seek breakthroughs in those. Here's an example of the way in which the RD team is working from a strategic perspective. They take a scientific hypothesis, and then they work them through to bring business breakthroughs for our customers primarily, but also for the industry as well. Here's one that I could at least understand, and they know that spiders have amazing vision to see moving objects. So they believe that from spiders, there will be inspiration or breakthroughs in terms of the way that connected or autonomous vehicles can drive by seeing moving objects. Similarly with frogs, which have amazing vision at night. And then they wonder whether, from nature, whether we can learn from the frogs' vision for autonomous vehicles, and the dogs with their very strong sense of smell. So, and then taking these examples from nature and then translating them into technology and the way in which we interface, us as humans interact. So I think I should really stop there with my apologies, and let's see if there are any questions. If I'll come back to the main page. Okay, any questions? No, I can't see any questions here in the box. Okay, thank you, Shagufta Hakim. The question about the mobile broadband market is, well, we've started work on 6G, and we expect that to come to realization around 2030. In terms of 5G, here in the US, of course, Huawei is not an operator. We don't operate in the US market in terms of providing network equipment or smartphones, but data speeds will increase as proper broadband channels are put into place for 5G. But really, the true benefit and growth for 5G will come from business application, or 5G for business, in which 5G is implemented across a very broad range of industries, so that, for example, in ports, shipping and containers can be automatically run over networks. In coal mines, in mining, 5G has tremendous applications. And then in banks, in financial sector, 5G and the higher speeds that allows with cloud and AI. So I think the future few years will see a massive expansion of 5G into business and industry applications. Well, thank you for your very kind comments. If there's nothing else, I think it's time to finish. Okay, thanks very much. Have a great day.